Ciphers in Black Ops 3 were very predominant, and they were used for doing a lot of things, but just to generalize them, it was for teasing and sharing storyline information, and that was the two major roles for Ciphers inside Black Ops 3, and at the time I thought this was a really cool way of further telling story and teasing the map, because it's something you had to put effort into. It kind of made sense with the time we were actually playing in, or the times we were playing in, so it just seemed like a really cool idea. But more recently it started, well, I guess my opinion started to change with Ciphers, and it really started with the Mob of the Dead loading screen cipher that was solved a couple weeks ago now, and now it's even more enforced now that we have another cipher from now Horizon Rocket being solved that was hinting at something happening inside Zetsubo no Shima. And these two ciphers are things that are pretty useless to us now, because now that we know what the Mob of the Dead loading screen cipher is really doing, it was just teasing at Origins, and also the Horizon Rocket cipher was teasing at Zetsubo no Shima, but it's not really useful to us now. I mean, it would have been useful at the time. Both of these ciphers would have been crazy to have at the time. If we solved these ciphers before Origins and before Zetsubo no Shima, we would have had a ton to speculate, and we could have really talked about them a lot, and it would have been just really fun to do in general. But we didn't really get the chance to do that because these ciphers were not solved in time. They were not solved for years after they came out, and now that we have them solved now, they're really not any use to us, and if they were never solved, then they would never be any use to us. So it's just something that I started thinking that you're just, like, if you think about if people don't actually solve these ciphers, I mean, that information is going to be useless, or if they don't solve them in time, that information is going to be useless, and that's something that I hadn't really thought about before, but it's just now, it just doesn't seem like it's really that great of an idea, because all this information that we're getting now that from these ciphers that took years to solve, it's just like, what's the use? I mean, we have no use for this Mob of the Dead cipher. We have no use for this Horizon Rocket cipher. We can't speculate on that anymore. It's just too late. And that is mainly relating to the teasers, but it's not only the teasers that are hidden in ciphers. There's many other things just storyline wise. I mean, if they just tell you something about the storyline, and we'll just use an example that, of course, Richtofen, this is a cipher from the Horizon Rocket, just for everyone understands, but there's actually a cipher talking about how Richtofen got the summoning key from the reporter and then ended up killing the reporter. So we did find that out, and we got it like right as the Horizon Rocket dropped and all that good stuff, and it was really cool. But what happens if we didn't solve that cipher ever? I mean, we're never going to know about that until they reveal it in the timeline or something like that, which, of course, they didn't. They actually revealed that in radio, I believe, inside, or no, it was a Montico, actually, inside Revelations, so it would have just been something we learned a couple months later. It's just like, okay, but it's just like, it could be useless. I mean, all these ciphers are just there and are useless until they're actually solved, and that's a problem when the ciphers don't get solved, or when the ciphers take a while to get solved, and that just makes that information in them quite useless. And that's my major problem with ciphers lately. It's just like, if they don't get solved or don't get solved in time, that information is just never going to be shared, and nobody's ever going to really have a use for it, and that's just thus making the cipher useless and pointless to put in there. And that's just a major problem I have with them. Like, what is, like, it just has a strong potential of being useless, and that's not my only problem with it, that the information can become useless if nobody solves it. And like, I'm not going to repeat myself, yeah, I already said it, but another major problem I have with it is that most people playing Call of Duty, or no, just most people in general, don't know how to solve ciphers, myself included. I mean, you're leaving so many people out of this race to solve things for the storyline and solve teasers when you hide it in the cipher, and it just really, I guess, what's the word here? There's a word to use here that I can't think of, but it just leaves out, we'll just say leaves out for now, but excludes, that's the word I was, no, it wasn't. But regardless, let's just say leaves out. It just leaves out a majority of your, I guess, player base that wants to go and solve these things, but they just can't, because they're not going to learn how to solve Veneer ciphers, ASG, or whatever those ciphers are called, or Enigma ciphers, or Caesar ciphers. Well, even though most people know how to solve Caesar ciphers, but for the most part, part, nobody's going to learn how to solve a vast amount of ciphers, so you're leaving a lot of people out. But of course, that's not only a bad thing, because then you would just, I guess you would have a select few people. I don't think it's a good thing in any way, come think of it, but regardless, it just feels like it's leaving out so many people, because if you look at the other ways they hide things like their Easter eggs, pretty much anybody that is decent at your game could maybe solve an Easter egg step. Not, of course, solve the entire Easter egg, but maybe solve a couple Easter egg steps if given enough time. But ciphers, that's just not the case. People aren't going to spend countless hours learning how to solve ciphers, and then they're going to actually use the knowledge of solving ciphers to spend even more countless hours trying to solve your ciphers. It's just something that I don't think is really the best way of doing things. I just cannot see a really big positive here. Like, they're all negatives. The more I think about this method of sharing storyline and sharing things that are teasers towards future things, it just doesn't seem like a good idea to me, because it's just like, now that we solve these ciphers too late, or if we never solve these ciphers, information, or that information, that cipher itself becomes useless, and it's just like, what is the point? And that's just my major problem with it, because it's just something that was taken away from us. Because if we were just flat out given this information from maybe the Mob of the Dead thing or loading screen, that would have been great. Imagine how many videos and people speculating on what exactly this could mean. That would have been all the hype it would have built up, but instead nobody solved it, and now we just say, hey, we finally solved that cipher 5 years later. Like, what's the point? And I don't know, it's just something that I've been thinking about lately. But anyways, that's about it for me, and of course, this was just a video of me just talking without a script or anything, just sharing my opinions on ciphers lately, because personally, I don't think that they are the best way of mainly telling story, and secondly, of course, sharing teasers. Now, I'm not saying there's no place for ciphers inside of zombies at all. I think that they can be used, but to the extent that they were used inside Black Ops 3, it's just not exactly the level we wanted. I mean, how many ciphers were actually in there? It had to be 100 plus, right? I mean, there's just way too many ciphers. But anyways, again, I don't want to make a mistake here and say ciphers don't have a place. I think they should have some sort of place in zombies, but it should be very scarce, to say the very least. But anyways, now I'm going to end the video without interrupting myself and mentioning anything. But if you guys did enjoy this, oh no, actually, before I say that, don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I want to hear what you guys think about all of this. Are you guys on the same side as me? You guys not really liking ciphers inside zombies, or do you actually like them and you have some reasons to disagree with me? I'd love to hear both of your sides down in the comments, because right now this is just me sharing my opinion, and I just want to hear what everybody thinks about it. But that's about it for this video. If you guys did enjoy the video, go ahead, do all the normal YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, bell, share, and especially bell. But I'm going to go, and I'll catch you guys on the next stream or video.
Is that